It's not actually a bad time to be a PlayStation 5 or current gen gamer at the moment. February was damn good. We had Monster Hunter Rise. I'm obviously into Callisto Protocol. We've got Dead Space Remake coming very soon on the channel. I promised it months ago. But we also have Atomic Heart banging the crap out of it on sales and just really proving to be a solid first-person Bioshock homage. I wanted to get a piece of content out before I quite literally go down the Wolong rabbit hole, which is imminent. And it's about the hidden gem that we saw 2019 under the name of Void Bastards. And you're probably thinking, what the hell has that got to do with what we're looking at? The game is made by one of the primary programmers from System Shock 2 and Bioshock. He was with Irrational for a number of years through that franchise. His name is John Shea, and if you know System Shock 2 or the System Shock series and the entire Bioshock franchise, you'll be well aware of some blatant talent, both with programming, look, design, enemy AI, level layout, everything. The man obviously knows what he's doing. Now, Void Bastards on a production front couldn't be further away from those two games we've just looked at. And if you saw that article and got to read a bit of the blurb, the guy sort of stepped away from the AAA gaming industry and went deep into indie. But this one is so deep on the roguelike level that it's been pulling me back for near on 4 years now.
Your action items. Obtain a tactical computer, a wiring diagram, and a mouse ball.
Its premise is a little bit like Rogue Legacy, with giving you a prefabricated character to start with, and you're not too punished on items and permadeath with things that you've unlocked. You can sort of build on this game the more you play through it. The cooler all your arsenal gets, you get better armor and little gadgets, and half the idea is to get to these ships, land on them and find some integral piece that you can then craft into a better weapon or something like a defibrillator. The game is just so funny with its items and British accents everywhere.
Everyone to corridor A!
The primary analogy I would make with some of those games we've been talking about is certainly the ship and the ship security and the door system. So you can see on the top left you've got quite a detailed map. This swings in and out of how much detail you're actually getting, whether or not you've hacked a computer to see the positions of some of the loot. But what I'm talking about is sections being able to be locked off and creeping enemies getting pulled into rooms that you can secure them in. It's pretty awesome on that front. You use a lot of strategy. If you're getting chased down, then you can lock a bad dude inside a room, but some of them can unlock the doors. You only give yourself a delayed bit of comfort. You might also be noticing a large amount of variety change in the colour palette with the spaceship interiors. That previous mission had a smoke and darkness sort of caveat put onto it, and that's quite a rarity. I've only seen that a couple of times in a few runs. Some ships will have just crazy security, or even your character might have a perk that allows them to sort of hear better or even make more noise. I've often get characters that smoke so that their oxygen in the top right runs out quicker, or make more noise when they're running. It's really incredible how much RNG is at play here, both when you spawn in as a new character but also when you step into a new spacecraft. The game's weapons, I suppose, are definitely something we should talk about. And you might have seen that little kitty bot come out there which acts as a distraction to the enemies. It's kind of an iconic weapon in the game, and everybody recognises that little kitty bot whizzing around and generally causing loads of havoc for the enemies. Most of the weapons that you're seeing here are consequence of unlocks in the game. You get given a rudimentary pistol and maybe a handful of grenades, but when you start unlocking electricity weapons, you can fire at machinery. And let's talk about that other mechanic that does align quite a lot more with Bioshock, and it's the hacking and the security cameras and the whole security system, and of course getting a lot of machinery to work for you and the enemies. There are switch around weapons and stuff that even allows you to warp enemies into different rooms. The weapon unlock loop for me is probably the strongest in the game. That and seeing new enemies is such a cool pull, and I love the sound and noise of them all, the comic strip effects. It's a really cool looking game when everything's going off all at once. That brings me on to its brilliant oxygen mechanic, which is basically a timer for how long you're allowed to be on this ship, but when it goes wrong, it goes really wrong. Now I want to talk about what's going on outside of this first person look of the game, and that's the main map, the spacecraft map that you saw at the beginning of the video. You're basically traversing to different space hulks and you're trying to get to that item. But there are two integral elements that you need, and it's food and it's fuel. And you saw me there during the choking scene that I was still picking up the red canisters because I was out of fuel, and it's game over if that happens. But also the sandwiches, if you can't rest and recuperate your health, you're also screwed. So part of being on these ships is also to gather resources. Let's have a look at those enemies and talk about what direction they're coming from. The whole game, for me, feels a little bit like a terminal, like an airport or intergalactic broken down lounge with the announcements, and you've got these tourist aliens walking around. The hulks feel like ex-tourism vessels, and some of them are. They look like luxury vehicles, and they've got catering areas, buffet areas that are like deserted. It is such a crazy universe with the empty suitcases everywhere, and outside in space being just this apocalyptic, derelict, everything is just ruined. Nothing is left pristine and working properly, and it really settles you in for an incredible roguelike experience, combined with the RNG on what sort of hulk you're going to get put in and what sort of unlockable you're going to start going for. Every time you sit down with the game, you have loads of different ideas and you see different stuff happening to you. I wanted to touch on its very strange controls, with run being L2 and having some sort of sneak mechanic, but the snappy weapon selection with L1 and R1 allows you so much freedom and able to jostle elements, pile on loads of attacks onto a single enemy. The element system and blight system, including poison, electricity, you've also got radiation in there. There's a lot of variety on what sort of weapon you're going to take to the party. Getting back to the game's sort of universe, it's got one of the most robust economies and spending system in it that I've ever seen in a sci-fi roguelike. The merit system allows you to do all kinds of stuff, like open secret boxes, spend it on the turrets to get them on your side, and also sort of bypass loads of dangerous stuff out on the main map. And it's everywhere, you can store it up. It's very clever. It wants you to build and store and invest both in your character and that weapon workbench. The game does come with caffeine as a major perk, and it's just hilarious to see what happens to you when you actually do consume one cup of coffee. The screen actually shakes for what seems like 15 minutes. One of the heartbreakers is that this could have run as a split screen game. Imagine the roguelike space adventures you could have with this on split screen. And visually, with that cel shaded look, it'd be so easy. That is criminal. John Shea, I'm not forgiving you for that one. What else is potentially criminal is if you guys don't try this or play this, because it's an absolute down the middle homage to everything we've been seeing in the last couple of years on the cool first person sci-fi shooter front.
SecBot is on the way and will end your life shortly. Thank you for your understanding.
It has also stood the test of time fantastically well as a roguelike indie game. It's up for awards for being on the Unity engine, and it's an incredible visual feast. Really funny and totally scary in areas, what with those British accents everywhere. crazy shocking twist also, this isn't the first time I've actually put this game on the channel and spoken about it, but it didn't cause much of a stir in 2019. But in 2023, this game is still better than ever. And I have been Couch Coop, and I will see you on the other side of my Wulong obsession.
わしの宿願